It's happy to see you.
Funny.
Okay, day 20 of Believathon, and I'm on my very last book. I had a bit of an existential crisis this morning, thinking about the last book. So, I've stuck to my TBR this whole time, up until now. 10 of my 11 books, and most of them have been amazing. The only one I think mainly that wasn't amazing until the very end was The Last Unicorn, and I think I need to ruminate on that, to be totally honest with you. When I was trying to figure out why it was that I didn't like it, when everyone loves it so much, I started to think about all the other ones that everyone else loved a lot that I didn't really like. I don't want to go into it or anything because it's like a raw subject with me, but Lord of the Rings is one of those. Like, I don't want to talk about it. I feel it like makes me feel too emotional. I'm starting to think about like a pattern to do with cult, old school kids fantasy books, really popular, that I didn't like. And now I'm sort of worried that my last book that I have is not only fitting into that pattern, but is also super thicky. So what I had on my TBR for the very last book was The Never-Ending Story by Michael Ende. I've wanted to read this for a really long time. I've never seen the movie. I don't really know anything about the book that much, except that loads and loads of people love it. But I have left it for last for a reason. I think that in my mind, the doubts were starting early on. And also, it's so big. You've got to be in the mood for a big old book. You know what I mean? Like, I'm into it. I like a big fatty book. But if you're not in the mood, it can be hard to get through. Especially if it's sort of what I suspect, in that I'm going to get to sort of here and then realize I've still got all this left to go and I'm not loving it. I hate DNFing a book. Ugh, I just hate it. I hate DNFing a book. So then just basically I have to ruin all of the awesomeness of Believathon by ending on a book that I just slog through for ages. I don't finish on time. November goes away, December goes away, January goes away. Still this one sits on my shelf while I'm like pretending that I'm still reading it while doing other things. Like read a book I don't like very much or clean the bathroom. Definitely clean the bathroom. So this morning I had like deep thoughts about potentially going off-piste off my TBR just quickly for the very last book so I can end on a high for sure. And so I was like asking around in the office. I was like, do you like this book? What other books do you like? Did you like this movie? Blah, blah. And then I had a look around the bookstore at my lunchtime and I have decided to not read this one for my very last one for Believathon. I feel a bit sad, to be honest, because I did have such high hopes, but now I'm worried. I am panicking and sort of jumping off this huge ship, basically. We'll show you now my foray into the bookstore. There's so much good stuff. Like, can we talk about how I feel like Believathon has potentially changed my life, and I'm not even kidding? Like, I've always thought of like kids books as like being in like several categories, like, you know, it like within my market, like books that I would read. Like, okay, classics, books that I remember from when I was a kid, or books that I might potentially read with my own kid now, you know. I never really thought of new fiction kids books coming out now as being sort of within my personal like market, you know, ones that I would just read by myself just because they've come out and they're good. And now that I know that new children's fiction is fire, it's just basically introduced me to a whole part of the bookstore that I can just waste all my time and money in. And I've just like abandoned it and neglected it for nearly the whole of my life. Anyway, I'll show you my foray into the bookstore now, and then we can like have some chatting about the options going forward from here.
And they're all a bit different. So this one helps me.
Y'all, I can't decide. I'm just gonna be here forever if I try to do it now. I'll buy them both.
Okay, what do you all think? I still can't decide between the two. I really want to read them both, and I will at some point, but obviously one is now and then one is some other time. I got stuff to do, you know what I mean? I sort of really want to read this one, The Iron Man. I didn't really know about this book until I started hearing sort of rumbles of it. I can't remember where, but someone else said it was really good. And it's sort of like, look on the back of it, this like review from the Times starts superbly with a clanking iron giant toppling from a cliff and lying smashed on the rocks below. Then his various parts get up and search for each other. Hughes has never written more compellingly. The Observer says, reckoned one of the greatest of modern fairy tales. Like, look at him. Even though he's enormous compared to the kid, he just looks really sad and like cute, you know, like a really big dog. But like, I feel a little bit like, I know it's stupid, but I feel like it's a little bit cheating. So I've gone from such I've gone from like this one being the one that I was going to read for the classics, like this one, to then this one instead. Like, it's sort of like, I don't know, it's like a cop-out. Like, I want to get it over with quicker, so I choose like a super small book. In that case, you know, like, this is like a normal size book. It's not super big, it's not super little, you know, it's normal sized. And I do really want to read this one, but oh god, I really want to read this one. Maybe I'll read them both. No, I don't have time. Stop! Heather, get a hold of yourself. This one, I think, like, the pictures and everything look really cute. It, like, reminds me a little bit of The Secret Garden, which I loved. And I sort of opened it up, and, like, there was something in there about, he was, like, asking this girl if she was a ghost or something. Like, a little, like, cutesy, haunted secret garden. I can't cope. Okay, I think I know. For the very last book of Believathon, for the classic book category, I'm going to read Tom's Midnight Garden by Philippa Pierce. And then because it's also novellas in November, I'll read this one because it's basically a novella. So I'll replace this one with one of the novellas I was going to read for and then read this one for Believathon. Solved. Right, reporting live from my bathroom because the radiator in this room is more kicking than anywhere else in the house. And I feel like it's not weird to just spend an entire day in the bathroom. Like, when I bring snacks in, that's when it's slightly weird. But I still do it because how am I going to spend a whole day reading up against the radiator without snacks? Like, I'll just read all day without snacks then. Ridiculous. Anyway, I am pretty good way into Tom's Midnight Garden, and I really like it. It's a weight off. It was getting really stressful thinking, what if the very last book for Believathon isn't as good as the other ones? No problem. You know, completely solved. This one's super good. So anyway, I'm on chapter 8 now. And that's a good, like, almost halfway, or maybe like a third-ish away through, and I have until about 12:30 today to keep reading it. I have to go to Beaujolais Day in Swansea. It's like the first Beaujolais of the season or something, but basically it's just an excuse for the whole of Swansea to get drunk and wear cocktail dresses and really high heels for about an hour and then take them off and walk around barefoot with them in their hand. But I'm really excited about it, but we've got to get the 1:30 train. So I've got to get ready. I've got to like make an effort with the face situation, put on a nice dress, maybe do my nails. So I'm going to have preparation time as well as time to bicycle to town. So I guess roughly 12:30. Also, I need to pick up tinnies for the train. 12. Have till 12. What time is it now? It's 10. What have I done with my morning? I dropped my kid off at school at 8:30. Between 8:30 and 10. What have I been doing? Like reading a bit, yeah, but just basically messing around. Okay, whatever. It's no big deal. We can bounce back from this. We can bounce back. 2 hours. 2 hours to get through a huge chunk of this book. Like, to be fair, since I've downgraded from an enormous book to like a less enormous book, my personal deadline schedule is a bit more relaxed. So I think if I don't get halfway today, that should be okay. I should have most of tomorrow because I have tomorrow off as well. But it's like my hangover day. It's like the day I've built in for being 32 and recovering from a whole day of drinking. But I reckon even on that day, I'll get quite a bit of reading done. So I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about this. In the book so far, so Tom, he has been forced to go and live for a couple weeks with his aunt and uncle in a different town, away from his brother for their like summer holidays or their like vacation time. And oh my god, I'm so sorry. I think my neighbor is building a fucking ark. Oh my god. But also, like, how does he switch from hammering to drilling so quickly? Like, is it like a hammer in one hand and a drill in the other? Because it literally goes bang, 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 bang. Like, there's no time to transition. Anyway, he's like building a boat to save the animals from flood is probably what's happening. That's the only thing I can think that would require hammering for like a week solid every part of the day until ridiculously late at night. Well, also he sneezes like a fucking elephant. Okay, but whatever. I'm sure he's a lovely man. So Peter gets measles, and so then Tom has to go away to live with his uncle for a little bit, his uncle and his aunt for a little bit, so that he's like quarantined away from other people, but also is away from the brother that has measles, so hopefully he won't get it at all. But he goes to live with them, and they live in a flat, which is, it's like this enormous house owned by this crotchety old woman who like lives in the attic and is the landlord, but the rest of it is like split into flats, so like several little couples and families live there, and the aunt and uncle are one of them, and they live in like the first floor flat or something like that, the ground floor flat. And there's this clock as you come in. It's like a grandfather clock, but it's all messed up. Like it chimes at the wrong times of day, but no one's allowed to touch it because it's like this crotchety old woman who's the landlady. She owns it, and she's like, don't touch it. She's very crotchety. But the kid, he's like, oh, do you have a garden? And aunt and uncle are like, no, it's just like a scruffy yard out the back. Like I can imagine it's exactly like my actual yard out the back, just concreted and weeded and gross. So he's like, oh, damn it. Not only do I have to come all the way here and not be with my brother who I love and like to play with, but with these like aunt and uncle who aren't very kind. I don't really like them that much. I don't really know them that well. To live in this house where I have to be really quiet and avoid the crotchety old woman, and there isn't even a garden. But then like late at night, he's laying in bed and he's just thinking about how shit his life is. And he hears the clock go 13 chimes. He's like, what? Like the clock really has gone crazy. So he sort of goes and looks at her, whatever, and he finds out the back there's a garden there, and it's like really lush and pretty, and it's like really big, and he sees like a girl in there, and he's like, oh my god, and he like wanders in, but then it disappears. And he wakes up in the morning and he's like, oh, there is a garden out the back. Like, my aunt and uncle, they totally lied to me just because they don't want me to go back there. They're such dicks. And so he, like, confronts them. He's like, so, you know, like, say, if someone was to lie to someone about, like, there being a garden back there, you know. And he goes and he looks and there's not actually a garden back there. And he's like, he loses his mind. He's, like, crying. He finds, like, a guy out the back who's also part of the flats. Like, he lives in a different part of the flat thing. And he's, like, working on a car. And the guy's like, are you okay? He's like, don't talk to me. I'm crying about stupidness. And then he's like gonna run back in, but the guy stops him. He's like, don't go in there right now. I can hear that the crotchety old woman from upstairs is doing up her clock and she hates children. Like, you should just wait a minute. And the kid's like, okay, well, thanks for the warning. Whatever. So then as he goes in, he does have a look at the clock, like she's not there anymore, and he's like inspecting it, and it's weird. Like, it has like a weird like creature on it with like wings, and it's got like, it's like reading a book, and it's like all weird. And he's like, is something up with the clock? It's weird. And he's like, the garden and the clock, I get it now. So the next night he goes into the garden again, and he's like going around all these different places, like, and exploring, and he sees all these different people. He sees like a gardener, but like everyone seems to be like old timey, as if like he's gone back in time to like the 19th century or something like this, but he doesn't really know. And then there's like a lightning storm, and it hits this tree, this like enormous fir tree, and the tree like explodes basically into fire and then falls over. But he remembers the fir tree being in the yard, like in his time, like outside of the garden, like with his aunt and uncle. He knows that it's in the yard, so he's like confused. He's like, well, if I went back in time to like the 19th century and watched this fir tree like fall over, but then I go back into my time and it's there. Like surely then it can't be like a forward in time, backward in time situation, because the tree would then not be there. So now he's all kinds of confused, and he's like asking his uncle about it. He's like asking him about like really like deep existential questions about time, and the uncle's like, fuck this life, you know, like who is this kid? Like how do we end up with this kid in our house? When is he leaving? But anyway, that's where I am. So now I'm on this part called The Cousins, and she's like in an old-timey outfit, isn't she? So I think this is probably the girl that he saw in the garden, and hopefully he's gonna have some interactions with this girl from now. So super excited. I've got now an hour and 45 minutes to do all that. Okay, I think it will come as a shock to no one that I read way too long, and then everything got pushed back, and now I'm leaving the house 20 minutes late. Also, I forgot that I parked my bike over by Nero ages ago, and I have to go get it because I can't leave there all night. But I'd just like to let you know, in Tom's Midnight Garden, I've gotten to actually quite far. I'm now on page 158 in The Angel Speaks, chapter 20. Definitely more than halfway through this book. I am speeding through this guy because it is super awesome. I really like it. We'll have a chat about it while we're walking. Holy shit, it's cold. And I'm not prepared for this to be cold. Like, why is it delayed in November? Why can't it be in July? Like, I mean, I understand why it can't be in July, but it's annoying. I just like to say that. Right, so the book is really good so far. Like, I don't want to give away too many spoilers. Like, once you get sort of more than halfway, everything you say from then on could potentially be a spoiler. So, I'll try to be good about it. Basically, he has made a friend with Hattie, the girl in the garden. And it turns out that she came to the house because her parents died or something. And she was really sad when she came there really young. And the aunt isn't very nice to her. And she's sort of always like quite sad. Spends all of her time in the garden like avoiding people because she feels unwanted in the house and misses her parents. She's a bit of an orphan. So she makes friends with the boy, but no one can see the boy. When he comes to the garden, he's like a ghost, and she thinks that he's a ghost, and he thinks that she's a ghost, so it's all a situation. But then, like, he's like climbing on this like really high up wall thing. She's like, oh, I'm not gonna do that, I'm gonna fall. And he's like, but I'm like basically a ghost in this garden, so I can do what I want, I won't get hurt. She's like, okay. So he climbs up on the garden, and the gardener guy, right, comes and says, Hattie, don't get on that wall. And she's like, why would I get on that wall? And it's like, just don't do it, you'll get hurt. She's like, okay. And then they're talking about it afterwards. They're like, why is he so worried I would get on that wall? Like, he can't see me. How do you know that even I was on the wall? So then something bad does happen to her. She falls out of this tree, the tree house thing that they have. She falls really far, and the gardener comes running over, and he's like, oh, I knew something bad would happen. And he looks at the boy and he says, now you get off back to hell where you came from. Apparently he can see it. And not only can the gardener see him, it's assumed that the gardener thinks that he's like some sort of demon or something that has come to like basically kill off the little girl. So he goes off in a huff with the little girl in his arms. She's obviously really injured, and he shuts the door behind him. But that is the little boy Tom. That's his way back to his like normal house, his like normal time and everything. So he's like trapped in the garden, he can't get out. So finally he sort of slips through something, ends up in the house, but it's obviously not his house, it's her house. Like all of the furniture is like old school furniture, and it's not split up into flats yet, it's like its like own whole house. And he can't figure out how to get back. So he goes up to Hattie's room, and they have a chat. She's okay, apparently. And they talk about her room, and he's like, oh shit, it's actually my room, except for nowadays it's half a room, half a bathroom. And that's how you sort of know, yeah, okay, it is actually the same house. So what's up with the tree thing? Like, it has to be like a time division. Anyway, so he falls asleep in her room and wakes up in his own bed, and he's like, oh, okay. So, you know, I didn't need to go through the door. Apparently just the garden exists only at nighttime, no matter what, blah, blah. But then his brother is better, doesn't have the measles anymore. Everyone's out of quarantine, and the kid has to go back home to where he came from. It's like, be with his brother and his parents, and he's like, I really don't want to go. Like, there's still all this stuff going on in the garden. Like, I'm gonna have to do everything that I want to do in the garden in the next couple of days. And also, he told the girl, like, right before he left the garden, he's like, okay, I'll come back tomorrow. She's like, you always say that, but you never do. And he's like, what are you kidding? I'll come every night. She's like, no, it'll go months and months and months without you coming. So obviously the time's all messed up as well. Anyway, I have so many questions. also forgot to say, he was talking to the aunt and uncle about Mr. Bartholomew. So Mrs. Bartholomew is that cranky woman who owns the clock. And Tom is like, oh, what about Mr. Bartholomew? So she asked the aunt and uncle. And they're like, there never really wasn't a Mr. Bartholomew as far as we're concerned. Like, Mrs. Bartholomew was widowed when she moved to the house. That was only like a couple years ago, you know? And Tom's like, well, she owns the clock. And the clock's obviously been here longer than a couple years because like the screws are all rusted into the wall. And they're like, oh yeah. You know, and the thing about that, now I have all of these questions about Mr. Bartholomew and why Mrs. Bartholomew was living there, even though she's obviously come from somewhere else. Maybe she lived there before. Anyway, so I'm really excited to get home to finish that book because I'm really intrigued. I have so many questions. However, I'm pretty depressed. Not only could I not get that book into this bag, obviously, but I couldn't get any book in at all, and it feels a bit weird, TBH. Like, I sort of thought I was going to be able to fit that Greta Thunberg one in there, you know, that one that she's written that's like really small, but I was going to try to fit that one in, and it very nearly fit, except that I couldn't close the clasp, and I knew that that would drive me absolutely crazy all night. So I feel a bit naked and like forlorn coming out into the world without a book. Like, I know that I'm not going to have a lot of chance because I'm like meeting people on the train, doing some drinking, blah blah, but still, like, what if I have to go to the bathroom and there's a long line? Anyway, tomorrow I'm pretty excited. Hopefully I won't be too hungover tomorrow. Maybe I'll like drink less so that I'm better for reading tomorrow, and I can just use that whole day to not only finish Tom's Midnight Garden, but to also read the Iron Man for the novella thing. Ugh, I've just got so many dreams, guys. I love only working 3 days a week. Like, I should just make that my norm. Except I wouldn't be able to buy as many books. It's just a thing. It's a thing. Okay. Okay, I'm waiting for my friend at the train station, and I found my way to the book section, obviously, and I just want to make a mental note about this book and how I want to get it at some point when I have a bigger handbag. Also this one.
Everybody shake it, baby.
Y'all, today has been a struggle. Like, also it's super rainy outside, super dark and wet. Like, I woke up this morning, like, even my husband didn't want to hang out with me. Like, took one look at me, he's like, I've arranged to meet a friend. I am disgusting, and you should be embarrassed for me. I've driven to my kid's school to pick her up, because it's like less than a mile. Like, with the prospect of just like walking in this rain at all just made me think, forget this life, you know, I'm not about this struggle. But anyway, the point of this part of the video is not to say how terrible the world is. It's to say, I finished this book and it was so good. And it has cheered me very nearly all the way up. Right, so I can't tell you what happens at the end because it'll totally ruin it for you. You just need to fully read it. Like, I will say that it sort of reminded me of, you know that book, The Time Traveler's Wife? It sort of reminded me of that. Because, like, the time stuff sort of works similarly in that it, like, it's not every day. Like, it happens every day for him, but not for her. And it doesn't always, like, carry on to the next bit. Like, sometimes she's younger when he goes, you know, or sometimes she's older. Like, it sort of bounces around in time. And also, my suspicions about certain people in the story proved true, and it was so good. Anyway, I loved the writing of it. Like, I loved the little pictures at the start of the chapters. I loved the ending. I've never heard of this Philippa Pierce before, but obviously this is a classic, and she's written loads of stuff. Let me see now. About the author. Philippa Pierce spent her childhood in Cambridgeshire. Her father was a flour miller and corn merchant in the village of Great Shelford, and the family lived in the mill house there. Oh. She went to school in Cambridge and studied English and history at Cambridge University. After college, she worked in the BBC as a scriptwriter and producer, and then in publishing as an editor. Her earliest ambition was to be a writer, and she has written many books, winning the Carnegie Medal for Tom's Midnight Garden. The village where she grew up and the Cambridgeshire countryside provide the background setting for both Tom's Midnight Garden and Minnow on the Say. What's Minnow on the Say? Oh, it's this. Also by Philippa Pierce. I reckon maybe I should read that one as well. Looks good. I like the cover. This kid's in a boat. Anyway, she died in 2006. That was my first year at uni. Right. Okay. Loved this. And also, do you know what this means? My last book for Believathon. Believathon is now over. Is that the sound of everyone crying all at once? Anyway, this has been a ridiculously good time. And I almost wasn't going to do Believathon. I was like, oh, a whole month of a readathon. I'm not sure I can stay focused for that long. But if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't have known how amazing like children's books are, and like all of the amazing ones that I've discovered in that time. It's also the last vlog for Believathon, and probably my last vlog for ages. Like, oh my god, I've like messed up my hair really bad. I actually went to Nero this morning without any makeup on accident. I just like showed up there and then went home and looked at myself in the mirror and was like, no wonder they were treating me like I was dying. Kept asking me how I feel. Thank you for watching all my vlogs, guys. I know that they're pretty much boring, like mashups of me talking about stuff no one cares about and also drinking and then being hungover. But I love you all. I wanted to know that. And I'll see you round for probably more videos to do with novellas in November. I think that's going to be my next one. Also, I'm contemplating reading gas station westerns for Thanksgiving. What better way to celebrate being thankful and like having American holidays than reading bullshit westerns I found in gas stations back home. If you also did Believathon and you read loads of amazing stuff, or you read any of the stuff that I read, please let me know in the comments. I definitely want to have a chat with people about various book related things. Right? I love you. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.